This is the Neo Show, where the minds shaping tomorrow speak today. Brought to you by Neo, the browser redefining what AI can do for you.
First of all, thank you for having me. I think we will have a very exciting conversation. I'm very excited about this piece. So about myself, Ondrej Dusek, I'm the founder of Crreo.ai, and we are an AI platform for video making. So we built what we believe is the simplest and fastest way to create long-form videos for social media. I can talk about this a little bit later. I know that the discussion is probably focused on other topics, but very happy to talk about this. Previously, I was a partner with McKinsey here in the San Francisco office. I was part of the digital McKinsey group. So most of my work was connected to technology and new business building for mostly US clients here.
Welcome to the Neo Show. So even though today is the first time we met in person, I know you actually have been using Neo AI native browser for a while. So when did you start using it, and then why did you even, start using Neo browser?
Yeah, so I'm honestly very excited about the browser. I started using Neo, it was late last year. I believe it was it late October or in November when the first beta release came out. And since then it's been on my computer and pretty much been the primary browser for most days.
So I think everyone should say that, but why you have that view?
Well, I love the browser. So when it came out as a beta, it was still a little bit bare bone, but what caught my attention right away was, I think it's called the magic box, essentially the integration of the URL box with AI chat. I found it very productive, very creative. I think you guys were probably the first ones who came up with this concept. And sort of that really clicked with me. I think it's where obviously now you see a lot of other browsers going that direction. So I think it was something that you guys probably brought it first to the market, and I think it's a great invention. That caught my attention at the beginning.
Yep, we're very glad that everyone else has been following us so far.
Yeah.
That's where the future is. But just to double click on this, the merging of the chat, search together, why that's a big deal for you in your day-to-day browsing?
Yeah, so for me, it's the convenience, simplicity, but mostly productivity. Okay, so I obviously use it for blend of my personal reading and personal search, but also for my work for Crreo. So it's just way more efficient to search for information and digest information, right? So being an AI startup, there's huge amount of research and reading and kind of following the latest trends and innovations that I personally have to do. And the magic box just makes it much easier.
So essentially allow you to digest, consume the digital information much more efficiently, much more, much faster as well.
Yeah, plus more conveniently, right? It's you don't have to think oh, am I searching for this or am I chatting about this? For me, it sort of flows together and from left to right each time. Because let's say I'm doing a research on the latest innovations in the AI video models, right? So it always comes to a combination of searching for the latest articles and then reading longer articles and then being able to summarize and get make sense out of things. So it's always the kind of convenience and productivity that is helpful for me.
Yeah, we are very proud to be the first to come out with this magic box, with this combining search and then the chat. But I'm also very proud to have you be one of our very earliest users. So sounds like we have not lost you, so we wanted to work harder and then to make you feel like this is the best browser on the planet.
Well, absolutely. I'm using the browser, and I suspect you guys are just getting started, right? There's probably more coming out, but it's a refreshing. It's a refreshing experience to have some innovation in the browser, right?
Because browser has not changed for 10 years.
For so many years. Right. And honestly, even when I started initially, when I first downloaded Neo, I was okay, browser, okay, let me give it a try. But I wasn't expecting much excitement. It's going to be another browser, right? I used other browsers before. But there's something that clicks. It's about the productivity and the kind of simplicity of like using the browser. So it helps. I think there's obviously more to come, and the industry obviously is now woken up a little bit to it.
It means a lot to for this to come from a founder CEO of an AI startup. Now let's double click about what you are doing for your AI startup. You mentioned about long form video. Let me just throw out one question in my mind, because for me, I'm not an expert in this area, but it sounds like every week there is a video AI text to video company out there popped up. Like this seems like a very crowded space. Why you wanted to do this, or maybe just give us a overview of the space.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me maybe step back a little bit, like why we started Crreo and like what we're trying to solve.
Maybe even start a little bit earlier, because you were from McKinsey, right? A consultant.
Yeah.
Why does a consultant have to do with video generation startup?
Yeah.
Give us that link first.
So for me it really started. So it was a little bit personal, because like I was trying to for many years before, I was trying to be a video creator myself, but it never really worked. And I have to say, embarrassingly, that it was a fail, right? And the reason why it didn't work for me is that I just didn't have the time to put the hours into it every week. I didn't have the skills, like I didn't have the tools, I didn't know how to use all the video production management and editing tools. I didn't even want to be on camera, to be completely honest, right? And then so it comes to a little bit like with my personal experience and with sort of even solving my own personal problem, that there are a lot of people out there in the world, for example, the two of you, that have a lot to say to people out there, expertise, experience, teaching, that don't have the time or the skills or the resources to do high quality videos, right? And that's kind of like one part that we realized, or I realized when starting Crreo. The other part is that when you look at what is truly engaging, at the content that is out there, then you realize like these days, pretty much like anything that is just written, very low engagement rates. Like there's just so much to read. People don't read that much anymore. Like there's two categories that have high engagement rates. One is videos, and the other one is user-generated content of like people going to Reddit and chatting with like an actual authentic content. And the sweet spot is obviously the intersection of like user-generated videos. So it's like the second part of things, and the third part of things is like when you actually look at how the video creation process for most people works. I mean, even today it's just very laborious. It's very difficult. And on average, people spend an hour to edit or create 1 minute of good video, right? And that's this kind of...
By the way, just so that we have the same nomenclature, when you talk about video here, are you talking about AI-generated video, or you are just talking about I shoot a video and then you do the edit? What video are we talking about here?
So in general, both, right? So in general, I think when people want to create content, I think most people don't actually even differentiate. It's like, is it AI video, or, they just want to get their idea or their expertise out there and share with as many people in as simple and as fast way as possible. And then, what we realize is that, you can actually, previously people were spending and still are spending 1 hour per 1 minute of good output video, but it doesn't have to be that way. When you actually do the homework and go through the process, a lot of that can be automated, and a lot of that can be substituted by AI. And then, with the advancement that we are seeing and, in the kind of AI video quality, I think it's just a matter of time before most video will actually be AI video, because it's just so much better, simpler, and faster. And then, so we saw an opportunity to help people like that. It's those like part-timers or those aspiring video creators, people who are starting or people who are just at the early stage of scaling their video content, that they don't really have good alternative options how to create quality long-form educational or expert videos for social media. And that's why I founded Crreo, and then so essentially our aspiration is to bring the fastest and simplest way how to get the job done.
So now there is a model, right? VO3 from Google. So for you, the VO3 is the kind of the API or the model you are going to leverage. You are not competing with.
We're
right.
certainly not trying to compete with
Right.
with.
You don't have your
VO3.
own model. You just use the sort of the commodity model out there.
So both. We also have an
your own
in-house model, and we're also using third-party models. But the way I look at the market is sort of like at the bottom. When you kind of visual look at sort of the stack, right? At the bottom, there are a bunch of foundational models, right? And VO3 is there together with other companies that essentially can afford to put tremendous resources into actually creating those foundational models. Then on top of that are sort of like vertical sectors. There's a bunch of like B2B players like Synthesia that is doing more like B2B videos. There's like B2C players like consumer grade videos like Crreo and others that then focus on sort of different segments and other aspects of the video. And what we're focusing on, and I think most of the players in the kind of above the foundational models, they're focusing on the workflow, right? That's the simplicity, that's the kind of user interaction and solving a real problem and bringing real value to the user.
Workflow, I completely understand it. Leveraging the VO3, I also understand it. Why do you need to have your own model? For what purposes?
So where we adopted and kind of co-created and fine-tuned our own model at the end, and like I call it brutally optimize it, is that we needed a lower cost solution for a lot of the consumer videos, right? So if you, for example, look at VO3, it's amazing. Yeah. The quality is just unparalleled, and one, if not the best on the market. But the cost is staggering, right? I think, was it like 50 cents per minute or $1 per minute still?
It's probably one of the fastest growing revenue product within Google in history.
Yes, exactly. But like if you look at a regular content creator, and to create a 10-minute educational video where you have to redo a lot of these video clips, I mean, you cannot afford to pay like $300 just to kind of get a YouTube video done, right? So we're looking for finding a lower cost capability that is good enough at this point.
It's what, $30 out of magnitude less, or even 2 out of magnitude less?
So the way that's obviously not the end user kind of cost, but our infrastructure and GPU cost is at this point for the lower end models is around 10 to 20 cents per minute. So you can imagine, and by the way, that has been improving steadily, right? So like when you sort of like back then I drew a chart of like cost per minute of video, right? And when you see 20-ish, when there was no good AI option, when you had to do it manual or pay a freelancer, it was around $10 per minute or higher, right? Like now the industry is essentially around $1 per minute, and the curve is just going down and down and down. And the Moore's law obviously is helping with this, right? So I think, when you just look 5-10 years ahead, I think the cost of AI video will be even lower than today.
One technical question before I let Axel ask some other questions too. What is the model? Are you using open source model to do fine tuning or what?
So essentially for our videos, we're using, to do good videos for our users, we had to integrate a lot of capabilities, right? So we have AI voices, some of them are third-party voices, some of them are our own hosted open source models. We have obviously these video models.
What open source model are you using? You said that you are using open source model.
Yeah.
So
for example, previously we used and I think still we use on the kind of cheaper end, we use LTX video also. But what we did is, it's an open source model. What we did is also further improve it, right? And that's sort of what makes it better fitting to the use cases that we have and for our users. And then, we have music, we have subtitles, but, I think the core, what we're doing is the workflow, how to interact with the user, how to make it really simple. And then sort of an intelligent engine, which we call this video director, which is essentially an AI engine that is attempting to do what a traditional movie director would do, essentially come out with the strategy, describing the individual scenes, like defining the dialogues and like who does what. And that's what we're building. That's what we're focusing on.
So we have video. We produce video twice a week now, right? How is there any use case using your software?
So I think for your sort of use case where you're recording, a live session, obviously like one use case that come to mind is adding special effects, like like a video B-roll, for example, or voiceovers, right? If you, for example, wanted to make this video accessible to Spanish speakers or French speakers or German
How many
speakers.
languages do you support?
We support, I think, 3 dozens of languages now. We have like 170 voices and 3 dozen languages.
Japanese, Chinese?
We do have Chinese. Japanese, I think we don't have yet.
Cool.
We have Hindi. But yeah, so that's
So
essentially...
we can translate our news show to 30 languages now.
You could, yeah.
So it's going to be a world, sort of on the world stage very soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about convenience and accessibility and being able to, I think kind of the other angle that consumers or kind of consumer digital video creators are trying to do is a lot of repurposing. And I think we spoke about that earlier, which is like, how can you essentially create one content and then repurpose it to different channels. Let's say you create a 10-minute educational video. How do you create a short 20-second trailer for advertising? How do you create a 30-second short that you can post to Shorts or TikTok, right? How do you create a super simple ad that you can put to your newsletter, right? That's where a lot of complexity and kind of man hours are also going to. And AI can help with a lot of these things.
So it's been about 2 years now in this space, right? And you, of course, mentioned you have your own model. So I'm wondering, I'm not super familiar, what is the greatest technical challenge? Is it, the lip syncing or the consistent characters? What's been the bottleneck?
So, that really depends kind of where on the market map you look for like different players. Like for us, like where we're spending a lot of our time are essentially 3 things. One thing is, again, like I don't want to over repeat, but the workflow, right? Like how do we really remove the complexity of the process of taking you from an idea to a video that is ready to be published, right? So that's one part of it, and that that comes a lot of thinking, a lot of simplicity, and a lot of automation into it. Second thing is the I would call it the consistent character and consistency of time and scene. So if let's say you're doing just a 4 or 5 second short video clip, pretty much doesn't matter. And there's a person in the video, you just need to make sure it's consistent within the 5 seconds. But let's say you're doing a 10-second educational video or a 10-second story about 2 friends, going somewhere and discovering, I don't know, Paris, right? Like you need the characters be consistent across the videos, have some intelligence about the characters to adjust to each scene and to each sort of like time period, but also have sort of like logic flowing through the video so that it looks like a story that has a consistent beginning and end. So that's the consistency and the long form piece. And the third piece where we spend a lot of calories is on like being able to support the infrastructure and the deployment, right? A lot of these models are computationally very extensive. I mean, how do you support, how do you scale, how do you deploy to your GPU cloud in a way that is cost effective and that can scale when there's more users at 5 p.m. and there's few users at midnight.
Yeah. So the second thing you mentioned about consistency, that's I know this is a big challenge for the video generation models. When you said at the beginning of the show you do long-term video, why doing long-term video to begin with? Because AI even ready for long-form video? Why don't you start with a short-form video? I'm just curious, what's your thought process?
So, I think, So it comes to the core problem that we're solving, which is creating a platform for people to be able to share their expertise or their insights or their unique stories. And then there's just a limited space that you can do it in like 5-10 seconds. I mean, you can do meme videos, right? But if you're like a bunch of our users or most of our users who try to do like serious content, then you need a version of long form. And,
So the problem you're solving is for those kind of people wanting to share insights within for 20 minutes, 30 minutes anyways.
I would say, the way we talk about long form is anything above 1 minute, but most of our users are in the 5 to 15 minute
5 to 15 minutes
range. And then that's the hardest thing that is out there, other than the foundational models for now. So that's what we're solving for our users, because we see that as like our unique thing that we're bringing to the ecosystem.
And similarly on that point, you mentioned that they charge basically for the models per minute. And I know there's the constraints you mentioned about long form and its struggles. But right now, why is the constraint at 15 minutes? I know I can go to Crreo.ai and I could make 15-minute generation. I know 30 minutes is coming. But what's the challenge there? Why not 20? Like, is it the constraints that you had mentioned earlier? Is that the reason?
Yeah. So that part is actually just purely infrastructure scaling and so like systems capability, just kind of maintaining the consistent character from the beginning till the end. Let's say you want to do a 90-minute long feature film, right? I mean, the amount of compute and intelligence that comes into it currently, I think it's very, very, very hard to solve on a scalable basis. So we're heading there. I mean, as you mentioned, we're currently working on the 30-minute version, and it really comes to like making sure that the consistency is there throughout the video, and that also the infrastructure can support it at a kind of cost-effective way. That's what we're solving for. But it's definitely coming, and the thing is, I mean, there's very powerful tailwinds in this whole industry, right? Because like the foundational models are getting much better and much more cost-effective. The GPUs, obviously NVIDIA, etc. GPUs are getting much more powerful, essentially each 3-6 months. So a lot of things that seem close to impossible these days will be quite possible 12 months from now.
So let's say for a 30-minute video, people using your platform, what's the rough cost? End to end.
So, I mean, coincidentally, I think I was writing a short article about this. So, so if you project that you would have we soon will have a way to produce quality video for 10 cents a minute, then essentially, let's say you want to do a long feature film, 120 minutes, let's say 2 hours, okay? Then what it's going to be $12 per movie, right? And the interesting part is it's cheaper than like a ticket when you go to a movie theater at that point, right? And then, so in my view, like what this is bringing now is like all the point of like all these interesting questions, like, oh, if it's, let's assume that a year from now, the quality will be 10 times better than today, which likely it will be. Let's assume that the cost will continue going down as fast as it has been. Let's assume that platforms like Crreo will crack fully, the consistency and the story and everything. Well, then a year or 2 years from now, I mean, you will be able to essentially generate your own private movies that are made just for you at the cost of
$1
ticket, $1 to $10 ticket, right?
Yeah.
And then so the future we're seeing is, I call it created on demand, right? It's sort of like in my view is the evolution of video on demand and essentially all the streaming that is out there. When people, essentially the whole concept is that people on their own time, as they please, watch content that had been prepared before, right? I think what soon will be possible is essentially you will be creating or demanding content in real time created just for you or for your use case or for your preferences, right?
Wow, on-demand Netflix, that definition of on-demand is going to be redefined by you.
Well,
it's the on-demand, not just downloading that movie, but also creating that movie.
Exactly, and that obviously that's where we believe, or that's why I personally believe, like the technology, what technology will
And
enable.
in
where
that
the market
case,
will
let's
go.
say that vision is true. I watched the on-demand Netflix, probably not Netflix as a company, another company. The raw material is somewhere there, but because of my interest, because of my hobby, they would sort of generate a movie tailored for my need. But it's not like every frame is generated from scratch, right?
So it depends. So in my view, there's gonna be like different use cases, sort of like different categories of content. Like one, like purely AI created, fully synthetic video that you can essentially customize.
That could be
to
on
that level.
demand.
That could be fully on demand, exactly to your preferences, to your taste, right? I imagine that there will also be space for sort of licensed but personalized content. Let's say you have your own favorite personal favorite show. Let's say, I don't know, I was a big fan of the Squid Game, right? But I didn't like the ending, and I wanted to change the character, and I wanted it to happen in San Francisco. Now I could sub-license it and just tailor the content to your taste, and just kind of serve it to you, right? And then you can imagine that people in the future, like actors or known people, would be sub-licensing their characters and actually getting paid for appearing in people's personal videos officially and in a properly licensed way.
Cool. Do we have questions from the?
Let's see. Do feel free to throw in any questions in the chat.
So you already give us a pretty good insight into the challenges, about your company, right? The technology, making the workflow better, making it more efficient, and also making it consistent, whether that's 20 minutes or not. That's very interesting. So I wanted to just have a chance to deep dive into how the new AI native organization looks like, because you started this company 2 years ago, right? Right after ChatGPT, it's an AI native company, and you came from McKinsey. McKinsey is a giant firm, for all practical purposes. Can you share with us, like, now you have doing this AI native companies? What is what are the surprises you? For instance, is that like, hey, with smaller people, I can do a lot of more work than I thought, or just share with us some interesting aha moments you had on this journey.
Okay, I'm happy to. In no particular order, right? But like one thing that surprised me, and like we all read about this, but like seeing it in action that really surprised me is like how much you can get done these days with just a small team, using AI tools and sort of modern building principles, and just kind of building on top of the amazing ecosystem that is out there, open source tools and third party and startup tools. It just, when I kind of look back at how much we built with a small team just in the last 12 months, it's kind of one thing that amazes me.
So that's one. Do you have a calibration, like if not because of the AI age, if this company were like there 3 years earlier, how many people you would need to accomplish the same thing? Do you have such calibration? Because I know when you were at McKinsey, you also worked with startups, right?
So, I mean, if we were building, the things that we're building now like 10 years ago, I mean, we would have needed at least 10 times the amount of people, just because for everything front end, for everything back end, cloud deployment, like everything would have been much harder. Now sort of like tapping on the power of like AI coding and scalable infrastructure and like all the tools that are available now, all the kind of open source tools that are out there. I mean, like everything's just moving much faster, and I think in my opinion, for the industry, it's like, like you can get done things much faster with fewer people. That's one thing that surprised me. The other thing that surprised me is like how much of, there's a lot of hype about the whole AI, but like, how much AI actually, in my view, it is a lot about productivity and saving time, but at least what surprised me most about our user base, and when we ask our users, it's about our users and a lot of people in the industry essentially saying that AI allows them to do things that were impossible for them previously, right? That's a lot of these kind of like people that are saying.
Give a concrete example.
Yeah, so we have literally like dozens and dozens of users who like tell us very openly, it's like I forever wanted to do videos, but I was never able to. Like I tried, I didn't have, sadly there are a lot of people who even say I didn't have the resources, right? Like, I couldn't afford to pay like all the different 10 tools that I needed. I don't need those 10 tools anymore.
And then 10 cents a minute is easy for most people.
Exactly. And then, now, tools like us and others are sort of like building a lot of the capabilities in the workflow so that you don't need to have the hassle of managing 10 different other tools, right? The other thing is that, we do have a lot of people who like are doing educational content, and just because they say, finally now it's easy enough for me to get it done, right? And then so what we're seeing is that there are a lot of like new people coming in to create content that they were not able to do before. I mean, I'll just give you like one example. Just last week we interviewed a user just to show that it's not only young people using AI, right? Like our user called Joe, he's a retired teacher. And then since he retired, he started producing content for his grandchildren. And then so he started creating storybooks for them. And then he tells us, and then like more people got interested. And then in the end, he actually published them as actual books on Amazon. And he in his retirement created 7 books that you can buy on Amazon just in the last 12 months. What he's working now is converting those books into audiobooks that he can then publish to Spotify. And then also he's working on his YouTube channel where he's actually converting these like children's stories into actual videos so that he can actually share them with the world. I mean, that's sort of like the power of it.
It's very insightful, but I'm still curious why this is a surprise to you. I thought this is your mission. Well, when you say it's a surprise, why did you say that?
It is our mission, absolutely. But it's still like personally surprised me. Like
unbelievable when you actually see it happen.
Actually see it, and also to like how broad, kind of like user portfolio this actually applies to, right? Like another example is that we have this user Usman who is a salesman, and essentially during evenings, like he's creating videos about I think his story is more about power families and rich families, right? An interesting niche. And then he built a channel with 50,000 followers. He's getting monetized, and he's already thinking about can this be a career for me actually, rather than just like an evening hobby, right? That's sort of like this kind of enablement that like,
when you hear those stories, it's sort of amazing, right?
So you're saying one of the central missions perhaps or capabilities is democratizing access so that anyone can become a video creator.
Yes, essentially, yes.
And a good video creator.
Yeah, exactly.
The good video creators. And so 100% agree. And there are a lot of people who have a lot to share because they've learned the expertise, or they have a passion for a topic, or they have a true passion to teach or educate people, right?
But there's a barrier, in the past. Now sort of that barrier is removed. By the way, you mentioned about this, a lot of impossible things now possible. This is the very much a consistent theme, nearshore. Even the last founder CEO we interviewed last Friday, he said the same thing, right? What is the possible? The bar is raised, right? So it's kind of a very much same. So you mentioned 2 things, what's impossible, right, is not possible. That's one. The other thing is that as a company, you are getting 10 times productivity, because of AI. How's since you only have a small number of people, does that mean that each person is wearing multiple hats? I mean, look, in a startup, a person needs to wear multiple hats anyways, right, even in the past. But do you see a lot more of that? Like, I don't know, engineers does, something beyond engineer, or, can you share with us some insights?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess it could be different, like, depending on like what startup you're doing. But like in our case, obviously we're like multi-headed. Like you have to be in a small team. We do have focus and expertise in the team, right? So like we do have expertise on GPU deployment, like how to deploy a lot of these large models into GPUs that we can scale so it's cost effective, etc.
One person knows better than everyone else.
Exactly. But we also don't want to be in a situation of, I don't want to say it, but somebody gets hit by a bus, like, we don't want to be completely irreplaceable. But I think the main theme to your question is, at least in our case, there's a lot of like full stack engineering where you have to understand essentially the flow from top to bottom of the stack. Because like you cannot write a front end app and workflow without understanding how it's going to get delivered in your back end, which is a bunch of Lambda functions in AWS deployment, and then how those are going to work with the GPU deployment when you have a bunch of models essentially scaling up and down, right? Like you sort of, there's a lot of like full stack engineering that you have to understand when you do, at least when you do what we do in the video creation process. But yeah, that would be what I would say is the kind of full stack angle that is very important for us.
Very interesting. So another guest on your show last week, the founder CEO of Maven, you probably know. So he mentioned that he hired a marketing person, but he had an engineer for that marketing role. What do you think? Are you doing that, or do you see that being the trend, or how do you think about this?
I definitely read growth engineering. I think that's how it's called. Growth engineer is a real term and real role. I totally get it. I think it makes a lot of sense because you have to design a lot of experience. Essentially, the core premise of this is, you just, everything you do, you just learn through A/B testing, right? So essentially, you have to engineer your go-to-market stack and experiments in a way that you can measure so that you can improve the product and everything. So I totally get it. I think it is it is what is needed, just because you want to be fully A/B and data driven even in your go-to-market. Like, completely honest, like we're not there yet. Like we're doing a bunch of things in the, we don't call it marketing, we call it growth space, where essentially it is, kind of still an intersection of growth levers and engineering, not connected in one person. But I can see that it would be beneficial. But I think a little trick is that you do need to really have the expertise and the true go-to-market arena, but you also need to have deep expertise in engineering, and it's very difficult to put that together into one person.
Yeah, clearly it's not like ubiquitously true, but
Yes.
Even hearing one or two examples, it's already pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned that your engineers and you yourself leverage AI, and what you've been able to accomplish is maybe 10x what would have been possible perhaps, right? And outside of Neo, what tools do you guys use specifically?
If you're asking specifically about AI coding, we've tried a bunch. We tried GitHub, used for a bit. Personally tried Cursor, used for a bit. Currently we're using Claude, and we find it helpful, and it definitely increases productivity, especially for like simpler tasks, right? Like for what would otherwise be somebody's job just to be doing simple tasks, like, hey, change this or build this, or change this button, or like change this form, or like integrate a new thing. Now it's all done by Claude essentially, and all you need is a sophisticated user that sort of knows how to use it. Where I think at least for us, and I guess at least what I hear from the industry, where the kind of next frontier for tools like this would be to really kind of do end-to-end full stack coding. At least in our case, that we haven't been able to crack it fully yet, just because of the amount of complexity and context that is in the full stack, top to bottom, like front end, back end, and GPU infrastructure deployment. But definitely saves time. That'd be one thing. Like anything that, like any company, I'm pretty sure that Jenny using GitHub is a huge help. Just managing code base with all the actions, automated deployment, obviously all the cloud infrastructure, automation and deployments that we have. It's just like so fast and saves so much time.
My last question. there's a little bit background that this is not a surprise. There's a lot of people talking about because of AI, there's some job loss. In particular, you see that for junior people, there is less opportunity because for people, hey, ChatGPT can be my junior employee, so I just need to hire senior, people. It's not true everywhere, but there is, what do you think about that? That's sort of the part of the question. But the other thing is, what's your recommendation? What's your advice to younger generation, anyways, regardless, the trend being this or not?
Yeah, well, it's a very big question, Howie. So my view on this, and what I've seen with Crreo, it's definitely happening, right? It's, like the AI tools are improving our own productivity, and obviously we're a small team that grows very fast. So for us, it's not that we're replacing people with AI, but it's true to say, even in our case, is that we would have had to hire a few more people if it were not for us using the AI tools. So effectively, AI sort of consumed or prevented us hiring or preventing us having to hire mostly junior people. I'll get into a little bit what I see as the recommendation, but I think the change is inevitable, right? And it's definitely happening, and I see this just kind of as shift in the mix of what people do, right? And why I say that is that when you look back, back in the days, when agriculture was essentially 95% of the jobs, pretty much everybody was in agriculture, right? And then with the advancements in technology and industrialization, and people's jobs started to shift into more industrial jobs and fewer agricultural jobs. And then with advanced automation, people's jobs switch more into services, right? And then so you look at the U.S. now. If I remember correctly, the latest numbers, agriculture is now less than 2% of jobs in the U.S. And then industrial or sort of manufacturing is less than 20, I believe. And the rest is services, right? And then the question is, if AI starts eating up those services jobs, how will people essentially, what else will they do, right? And what's coming after? But it's not a shift that hasn't been around in history. We've gone through these shifts.
Multiple such shifts.
100
The
years.
only kind of interesting argument is the schedule is compressed. Because agriculture to today, it's more than 100 years, right?
Yeah.
At least it took decades for the shift to happen. But this time, AI could have impact in just a few years, right? So now comes to the advice.
Well, too, when I look at sort of what is happening is, what I would do, if I were at the beginning of my career. Clearly one of that is being super fluent with using AI tools, right? It comes a little bit at this point as kind of buzzword, a cliche. Yeah. But AI is not replacing jobs. It's other people who use AI who are replacing jobs. So being the one who actually knows how to use AI better than anyone else and be more productive and more capable with AI, I think that's a huge ticket, right? That's even when we do the selected hiring now, we really look for people who know how to use AI tools, right? That's the magic ticket. That's one thing.
By the way, Axel is applying for college now, and the way I saw him use AI, he certainly has an advantage over people who do not use AI as much, right? Doing the deep research, so on and so on. Yeah. So that resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely a major ticket, right? People ask me a lot about sort of computer science and developer jobs.
Yeah.
I don't think, there's a lot of belief in the market that those jobs are going away completely. I don't think those jobs are going away. I think, at least in our case, what we're seeing is that it's just shifting from, being the developer who knows how to code into being a really good systems engineer who understands how systems work or can work, who can architect them, and who can use AI coding to deliver those good systems, right? But it's still the engineering, pure computer science thinking of how to design systems that can be scalable, where you manage interdependencies, that is just performant, and then being able to use those AI agents to deliver the code rather than being the coder. And I think you can pretty much look at every job that's you think AI is replacing it. But behind this in the future, you will still see a way more sophisticated person and user just using the AI tools to still deliver kind of the original value that job had, just maybe in a different way. Right?
So no need to avoid computer science.
That's my personal view. I just, people ask me a lot, should I drop from my computer science class? My personal view is absolutely not, but I would focus much less on like how to write code and understanding the different languages, coding languages, but I would focus much more on true systems engineering and systems design, because that's the truly uniquely valuable asset that you then have to be able to manage a bunch of AI agents that actually get the code delivered. That's my personal view.
I think it's been a real pleasure to speak to you today. I think I'm gonna have to start working on my systems logic. Yeah.
And thanks for doing this, very meaningful thing, right? Democratize the access to creating video or creating whatever the artifacts. Good luck with the journey ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good luck, and love the Neo product. Please keep pushing, because we depend on it quite a lot. For my work, for my productivity. Please keep it up.
Yeah, we'll have innovation one after another. Even this morning, we're discussing the team meeting next week. When you get or maybe 2 weeks when you get a new browser, it looks like a very new. So we are kind of pushing forward. And for people on your team, on the show, listening to this episode, we'll get you the access and then jump the waiting list. So
I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for having me.